So there's me thinking everything I'm touching here is turning to gold. I've got this grand plan that I'm going to become the next Alan Sugar. I'm going to be absolutely fantastic. This is going to be it. I'm going to have 10 branches around Sussex before you know it, because I'm on a run now. And then my turnover within 3 months of 2008, 2009 went from £1.2 million to £700,000. And I had a cost base of £1 million.
Yeah.
So that was the scariest time of my life. I became ill. I went grey. And suddenly everything I touched was falling apart. And obviously you can turn around and say it wasn't my fault, but it's absolutely 100% my fault because I wasn't clever enough to see it coming when I should have been.
So I'm Matthew Cox and I'm a business strategist. I've run and grown multiple businesses over the last 15 or so years. Join me on my journey with helping other entrepreneurs figure out what their goals are, how to set them and how to achieve them. Right, today everybody, we've got Norman Mayhew on the podcast, who runs the Sussex Sign Company, and he's going to tell us all about his journey from young entrepreneur all the way to today. But what we're going to actually focus on is his 10-year plan and his 5-year plans, and we're going to try and iron out his peaks and troughs, because he has these peaks and troughs where maybe he needs some more input on kind of regular cash flow items, and also a massive thing, in order for him to get to his particular goals, he's going to have to look at the staffing situation. So we're going to be really looking at culture, getting the right people in, making sure that his business is in a nice position so that he can sell it or look at a management buyout. So let's get Norman on, and hopefully this is a really, really interesting podcast for you guys. Norman's been in business for a long time, so he's got quite a lot to say. Get yourself a coffee, sit down, maybe a little bowl of peanuts, something like that, whatever. It's a fairly lengthy one, this one. Let's go straight into the podcast now. All right, we've got my good friend here, Norman Mayhew from the Sussex Sign Company. He joins us today to come on the podcast. So we're going to dive into his kind of bit about your business and kind of what your long-term goals are and what's your how are you going to reach those, really, Norman? So first things first, tell us a little bit about your business, kind of, I suppose, in a kind of elongated elevator style pitch.
Elongated elevator, I like
you
that.
Can have more than 60 seconds.
It's not going to be a nice 60
No.
seconds. No. God, it's just as well, because if you're going to tell about this as well. If we go back 30 years, I started the business with my father-in-law. He was made redundant, and he'd moved down to be closer to our new child. And we started the business. I had a sort of background in sort of signage, a little bit of background there, and vehicle graphics. So we started the business with no money, little tiny box room of his house, and we just said, yeah, let's give it a go. Went out there. Our first month's turnover was £400, knocking on doors or knocking on garage doors, trying to persuade them to use us. We were buying stuff in from another sign company, and it went like that for the first 12 months. Our first year's turnover was £38,000, which I remember because it wasn't enough. And then from there on, we grew slowly but surely. Got a factory at New Haven, rented that factory for the first couple of years, grew the business to a fair-sized team, sort of 6 or 7 of us, or I thought it was a fair-sized team. But we were always chasing the profit. So every time we earned some money, we spent it on growth. Every time we earned some more money, we spent it on growth, and so on and so forth. So it was 10 years in before we sort of started making any proper money. And then even so, it went even longer, because after the first 10 years, I then went and bought one of our major competitors in Brighton called Best. They were a screen printing company. The synergy tied in really nicely with the signage side of things, because screen printing and signage goes together. And then 3 years later, Pete had retired by this time. I bought him out. He had retired and moved off. We'd bought the factory in New Haven. So I owned the factory in New Haven, and we rented the factory in Hove at Best. And then basically the opportunity came on to by my biggest competitor in Brighton, which was the Brighton Sign Company. And they'd been going for a long time. They had merged in from Barden Signs, BM Signs to the Brighton Sign Company.
Okay.
They were one of the biggest sign companies in Brighton, and I always had an eye to sort of buy them.
Yeah.
The opportunity came up. I borrowed and mortgaged myself up to the hilt, sold my soul to the devil, and bought the Brighton Sign Company in 2007/2008.
Yeah.
And I had more debt coming out of my ears than I'd ever had before. And
that must have been a fairly scary time for those of you young enough to remember after what happened in 07/08.
I'm just about to go there, aren't I? I'm just about to go there. So there's me thinking everything I'm touching here is turning to gold. I've got this grand plan that I'm going to become the next Alan Sugar. I'm going to be absolutely fantastic. This is going to be it. I'm going to have 10 branches around Sussex before you know it, because I'm on a run now. And my turnover had just hit 1.2 million collectively across all 3 branches. And I had a manager in New Haven, I had a manager in Hove, and I was running the Brighton Sign Company because that was where it was going to go. I was going to get a manager in there, and then I was going to buy another one and then carry on. And everything was going to be rosy, and everything I touched was going to turn to gold. And then my turnover within 3 months of 2008/2009 went from £1.2 million to £700,000, and I had a cost base of £1 million.
Yeah.
So that was the scariest time of my life. I became ill. I went grey. And suddenly everything I touched was falling apart. And obviously you can turn around and say it wasn't my fault, but it's absolutely 100% my fault because I wasn't clever enough to see it coming, and I should have been. So what I did, I had a friend actually. I was right in the brown stuff, and I had a friend who I'd done some favours for before, and he bought into the company. He said, "I believe in you," and he bought into the company, and he's been a sleeping partner ever since. And he's doing very well out of it now. But at the time, everyone said he was bad because obviously we were going to go bust, weren't we?
Yeah.
But he knew what I was capable of and what we were capable of. And so he bought into the company, which was great. And then we spent the next 5 years. Great. Obviously, there was austerity, so everything was tough. We spent the next 5 years dragging ourselves out of where we were. At the end of the 6th year, I was debt-free. Didn't owe a single penny to anybody. Still owned the factory at New Haven. And essentially, we moved. At that point, we'd closed New Haven down, rented that factory out, closed Hove down, rented that factory out. And we just worked out of our main head office at Brighton or Port Slade, and we grew it and grew it and grew it. And then 2016, 2017 started getting busier again. 2018, 2019 started looking like we could grow to expand.
Yeah.
So I'd got the team up to 24 staff. We were doing £1.4 million. We lost quite a big contract because they became PLC, and then they went out to tender.
Yeah.
So that put us back down to £1 million. And then we built it back up to 1.2 million. And I went, right, okay, what we're going to do here, we're going to grow the business again. So I employed 2 new salespeople in December 2019, ready for the growth in 2020.
Yeah.
And then in February 2020, I started seeing a little bit of hesitation. People weren't sort of like buying like they should be buying in February, and then on March the 23rd, 2020, it all happened again, and the world went wrong again, and COVID came along, and the business was absolutely devastated. So COVID came along. It was. Again, I thought that was it. We were going to finish. Boris Johnson sent us home, and I went out for a walk every single day, and I called it my walk in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And as I went down seafront every day and had a nice long walk, and spoke to my accountant every day. And then after 6 weeks, we were allowed to go back in the office, and we went back in, and within 5 days, we had COVID sneeze screens up on the website and floor stickers up on the website. And we started selling floor stickers. Yeah. There was just 3 of us in the office to start with. Then there was 4 of us. Then there was 5 of us. And so for the next 12 to 18 months, everybody knows manufacturing businesses it was difficult. You know, they sent us home, let's go back. Yeah. They sent us home, let's go back. We didn't know whether we were coming or going. It was very emotional. I lost some fantastic people because one thing that they tell you that furlough was brilliant. Furlough was absolutely brilliant. But they told us they were stopping furlough at the end of August. So we had to sack everybody we were going to sack at the end of August, which we did. I got rid of some fantastic people. And then in September, they started furlough up again, which was nice of them. Yeah. It's a shame they didn't tell us they were going to do that in August. Otherwise, I could have kept everybody. But hey ho, that was it. So essentially at the end of COVID, I ended up with 12 people. So I had
about half the team.
Half the team. And then since then, we've built the team back up again. We're now up to 16 people. I think 16, including me. And we're back up to 1.2 million, which is pretty good. The only thing is, whilst we're 1.2 million, I think realistically we're at about 950,000 in real terms, because we've had massive inflation. We've had cost of goods have gone up. Wages have gone through the roof. You know, I'm paying, where I was paying somebody £19,000 a year to do a particular job in 2019, I'm now paying that same person £25,000 a year to do the same job in 2024. So that's where we are to this point.
So one thing I like to ask everybody when they come on the podcast is, what was young Norman like? So that kind of teenage, coming into puberty.
Oh, coming into puberty.
Like your kind of 12-year-old.
Yeah, as opposed to during puberty. Is that a whole new story?
Yeah, up to kind of working age, I suppose.
Yeah, up to working age. I was an entrepreneur. I used to absolutely love doing things to earn money. So what I'd do is, when I was a kid, I used to work down the Drove garage, which is where Iceland is now, and the range in New Haven. I used to work down there, and I used to go out, and I used to walk around the streets on my paper round, and I used to see if anyone had any rusty bikes outside. Then I'd go back there after school and knock on the door, and I say, "I see your bike's rusty." And they go, yeah, it's knackered, I'm trying to get rid of it. Yeah. So I'll take it off your hands. Yeah. I used to take it home. I used to strip it down. I used to clean it all up. I used to get spray cans from Halfords. I used to spray them up, and then I put them in a Friday ad for like 30 quid and sell them at the weekends. So that was how I
literally did a video on side hustles, and that's what I did at uni. I used to buy
you did the same thing?
I didn't hunt around people's lawns. I bought them off eBay when people had taken poor pictures of them. Yeah. So not advertised them very well. Do them up, put them back on.
Yeah, that's how I sort of like did it, and it's great. You can make an old tatty bike look pretty good, and you can make it work quite well. Yeah. And when I was poor, just after we started the company, my kids' first 2 bikes we got from the tip, and I did exactly the same thing then, and they used those bikes for a couple of years, which was great. So that was that. But as a student, I was not a very good student. I went to the local comprehensive school. It was okay, but I was, let's just say I was a little bit on the wrong side of the street.
Okay. You're a bit mischievous.
I was a little bit mischievous. I loved history. I loved history. So I was in a set 5, which is almost like he can't read and write and is never going to be able to. Yeah. In English, but I was in a set 1 for history. Yeah. And now, whilst history and English are 2 totally different subjects, you do need to know English to be able to understand history. And I got a grade A in history and a grade 5 in English, or a grade E or whatever it was. So it goes to show you a lot of it's down to the teachers. And some of my teachers liked me because I was a bit of a character, and some of my teachers really didn't like me because I was a bit of a character. So that was my schooling really, and everything. After I left school, I started education. And I've gone to college and everything.
How many people come on the podcast, and general sort of stereotypical thing is that during their school life they weren't that great at school, or they were mischievous, or they didn't get on well with school. I don't know if it's like a sort of entrepreneurial trait really, that your mind focus is somewhere completely different, not in the kind of normal educational space.
And since school, my head or my ears are always listening to a book. I have spent my whole.
But your books are generally on like business and stuff. They're not. You're not listening to Shakespeare or whatever you would have listened to at school.
No, I'm not listening to Shakespeare. No. I like the odd novel, but at the end of the day, the odd novel was, just put the telly on.
It's a want to fill your brain with knowledge rather than fantasy, if you like.
Relevant knowledge. Relevant knowledge.
So, what does the next kind of 1 to 10 years, like if you say 1, 5 and 10 years, where's that hold for you now? I mean, obviously we don't know about anomalies in the economy, COVID and so on.
Well, the great thing is, so we've got what I'm calling the Great Refresh. So just literally Friday, new government. Whether you agree, I don't care whether they're red or they're blue. I believe we're all masters.
Or yellow, other colours.
Or yellow, other colours are available. We're masters of our own destiny. The only thing I do know is that they're coming along and they want to help businesses, and they want to help businesses grow. So I did a little calculation actually, which is quite funny. So I started the business in 1995. In 1997, a Labour government took over, and my turnover was £100,000 a year. And when the Labour government finished in 2010, my turnover was 1.2 million. When the Conservative government took over in 2010, my turnover was 1.2 million. And when the new Labour government comes in 2024, my turnover is still 1.2 million. And now, I'm not saying it has anything to do with the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, but I just thought it was quite interesting. They go on about growth. And the fact is that I'm a typical business, and it hasn't grown over the last 14 years. And that's where the problems are. So we have to grow. That's
why interest rates have been so low, because the economy just hasn't grown. I mean, it's
absolutely
bleeding from billions of pounds being injected during that, during the financial crash, really, and then COVID again.
Absolutely.
So what's your kind of plan then? So the next
12 months.
Next 12 months.
Okay, I've just employed another salesperson, and I am starting to grow again. I am now looking for another sign fitter to fill the gap that the salesperson has done. I have a 5-year plan to grow the business to £2 million. So we want to increase our turnover by £200,000 a year every year for the next 5 years. That started actually last year when we were on £1 million. I wanted to grow the business to 1.2. So it's quite a big ask. Well, it's certainly a big ask in the first 3 years because it's quite chunky monies. So I'm looking to expand and grow the business. When we get to 2 million, we will have 27 members of staff. We are looking for another vehicle wrapping bay currently around the Burgess Hill, Hassocks, Hayward Heath area. And now we don't know whether that's going to be a vehicle wrapping bay, as in a shed in a field, or it's going to be a vehicle wrapping bay come sign company, as in a factory in an industrial estate where we can sell signs from it as well. So we're expanding back to where we were back in 2000 and sort of like 2008, getting another branch. Because what we found is that whilst people will buy signs off us if they're in Eastbourne, people won't necessarily want their van sign written. They won't drive all the way from Eastbourne to Port Slade to get their van sign written. They want to just go to a local unit. So we need these units to be able to expand the vehicle wrapping side, because we're known to be one of the best vehicle sort of signage vehicle wrapping companies in Sussex, and we need to grow that. So that's sort of like the next year to 5 years. And then I've got my management team set up, which is quite cool. And once the management team is there, and they're sort of like the next 5 years, they've got to learn all the things that they need to learn to be able to run the company. which they're doing a lot of anyway. I've got a good management team structure. Once they learn properly how to run the company without me being that at all, I'm then going to go part-time. And then for the 5 years, between 5 years' time and 10 years, I'll probably go down to 3 days a week. And then in 10 years, I'm retiring. So the business will be sold, hopefully for a management buyout. And then I'm retired.
Whatever at that stage. Okay. So to summarise, I suppose the immediate goal is to get it up to £2 million turnover. And then, and what would be the profit margin on that? What, about 10% or something?
Between
like
7 and 10% profit, net profit.
And then spend the preceding 5 years making sure that the business is in a kind of fully operational. You're not working in the business; you're working on it. So I suppose
I'm sort of there now.
Yeah,
I don't fit signs anymore.
No,
I don't fit vehicles.
But you're like the master marketeer of the business.
I am the master.
So you need to find someone to replace you.
I have engaged a marketing company. At the moment, which we're working quite closely with, and then as I go more and more part time, they will take on more and more of the marketing side of stuff.
Are they going to do? I mean, for my dealings with you, you're like the marketing person, but you're also like the business development manager, come salesperson.
Yes.
So, is there presumably within that team of 27, you're going to have to find someone that's going to be the new Norman, essentially?
Yeah. Well, I've just promoted actually one of the girls that I employed just before we crashed and burnt at COVID. She's just become the new sales manager.
Okay.
I've then got 3 other salespeople. We need to grow that to effectively 6 other salespeople over that period of time, and then we will have a business development manager. So that business development manager will be the person who does what I do: go out and press the flesh, do the networking, do stuff like this. Make sure that we're focused.
Presumably look for things like your Burgess Hill site. That might be an acquisition of somebody up there who maybe is a small business.
That's the sort of thing.
Okay. So what's going to stop you getting towards your 2 million then, or what
financial crisis, COVID. Where do you want me to start?
Already happened. Don't say World War III.
No, that's a thought, isn't it? That's getting back to politics, man. We're not allowed to get back to politics.
But assuming all things equal, and the changing government is fruitful for businesses, but not like it's not going to be.
Well, we're going to pay more tax, aren't we? But other than that, it could be good.
Assuming all those, everything all equal, what is it that's the biggest challenges, do you think?
If we have a 10-year run, our biggest challenge is staffing and skill base.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, in fact, I was looking at yesterday. So I've currently got an advert on Indeed. And looking to employ people. Now, because we've been going for 30 years locally, most of the people who are in the industry, I trained. And the problem with that is that, 1, they don't necessarily want to come back and work for me. 2, they've started their own businesses. 3, they're freelancers, they're self-employed. And the thing is, a lot of the smaller sign companies are one-man bands or very small family things, and they don't take on apprentices. And I'm a massive advocate for taking on trainees and apprentices. I love it, and I think everybody should be. And if the government's got any sense, they will incentivise every small business to take on an apprentice from the age of 16, because then what you will have is you will have a constant stream of skilled people going into the workplace, and not people with a degree that they can't use, coming out of university at 21, 22 years old, who have a massive debt under their belt and actually want to go and earn 30 grand a year from day one. So people who have trained, learnt the skill base, become butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, plumbers, electricians, sign makers.
I think I get the apprenticeship route. We've done that here quite a lot, and that's really good. And I think that probably that suits like the vehicle wrappers and the sign fitters and the rest of it. I suppose my question is, where do you find the right people for your or where were you hoping to find the right people for your business development manager role and stuff? Because apprentices, traditionally, it takes a long time for people to get into that role.
Yeah.
I don't know how you find it, but my opinion of younger people as a general rule of thumb, I'm sure I get slated in the comments for saying this, but they're not fans of putting themselves out there. Like, they like to consume content rather than create it. They don't like to pick up the phone, all those kind of things. They're quite hard to get to that business development manager, and that's going to be key to you getting to your £2 million, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Having that really good, strong sales team.
Unfortunately, the long and the short of it is you've got to kiss a lot of frogs. There's three kinds of people. And I call them, they're like sheepdogs and shepherds, and they, the sheep just want to go in, do a job, and go home at the end of the evening. 5 o'clock, they walk out the door, and they come along, and they're absolutely fine for the company, and they're fine for all kinds of companies, but they are essentially your union reps. They're the people who think that you're in it for yourself and not in it for them. They're the people who want to get paid as much as they possibly can for doing as little as possible, but they do a good job when they're there. Then there's the sheepdogs, and the sheepdogs were the supervisors and the managers, and they'll come in and they will do a really good job, and they will put in that extra effort, and because they're putting in that extra effort, you reward them, but the effort comes before reward. And unfortunately, over the last sort of 15 years, it seems to have changed. When I was a youngster and I did my apprenticeship, I was always taught that, if you do, in fact, I think Napoleon Hill, I read a thing in a Napoleon Hill book. If you do more than you're paid for, eventually you'll get paid for more than you do.
Yeah.
And Napoleon Hill said that, so I'm not going to claim that one, but it's a very good saying.
You are the master of many phrases.
Yeah, I do like my little sound bites and my phrases, and some of them I have claimed to be my own because no one knows where they come from, but I do. But that one I can't because it's too famous. So, and I'm a believer in that. Another one I go about is putting wood in the fire. If you want heat out of the fire, you've got to put the wood in it first. You've got to go and collect that wood from the forest.
Yeah, and
you need to go and do that. And the thing is, what I call the kids don't want to do now is they don't want to collect that wood. They don't want to put in the work first. No. They want the money straight away. And so the thing is, they're the, like I say, they're the sheepdogs. The sheepdogs, some of them are really good. They become the managers. They're prepared to put the work in. And then, of course, you've got the shepherds. Now, as every walk of life, there's only a few people who rise to the top. But if, and when I said it right at the beginning of that, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs. The business development manager will come along maybe as an admin person or as a salesperson, and they will shine and they will become the business development person. If I put an advert in the paper tomorrow for a business development person on 40 grand a year, I will get 1,000 applicants and I'll probably get 3 people who are really good.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you're searching for that person, you're probably going to be searching for a long time. So I'm a believer of employing from within. So my business development manager or my business development director will come out of, my general manager at the moment started with me 8 years ago, and you know her.
Yeah.
She started with me 8 years ago as my admin assistant. And she was 18 years old when she started with me as my admin assistant. She wouldn't say boo to a goose, and now she's running my organisation and she's 26 years old. And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And I think promoting from within is like really key to most businesses that are successful. It can be inherently difficult if you start inserting people halfway up the hierarchical structure because they come in with their own ideas and changes and the rest of it. My own experience of it is sometimes like you can be a little bit blindsided by that journey, and you think this person is the best for your business, and actually it might be that person has 90% of the skills, but that 10% is the thing that really drives the business forward. Selling and that pizzazz when you're at a meeting and that ability to find a solution to many different things. I mean, do you take this lady with you to pitches and things like that?
Well,
and
not
stuff
yet,
to learn,
but you would do.
Yeah.
So the thing is, My general manager, for instance, Maisie.
Yeah.
Now, Maisie's been on a journey, and we realised we were working really well together in COVID.
Yeah.
And then I started listening to what she was saying. She then realised that I could actually be spoken to, and I could actually listen.
Yeah.
I would actually listen to her, and I'm not this.
They broke down the shield.
Yeah, I'm not this ogre sitting in the corner, which was,
Yeah.
she was led to believe by the previous manager that I was this ogre sitting in the corner. And actually, she had an opinion, and I valued it, and I listened. And then, obviously, listening to her opinion, I realised that actually, not only has she got an opinion, she's really bright. And because of that, we built that relationship, and that's grown. And then I sent her on a few training courses, which I think is really important. And then out of those training courses come ideas, and then from those ideas we develop them, and then she goes on more training courses, and out of that comes more ideas. And she's developed an internal production process. For want of a better word, I don't quite know what I'd call it, but and it's absolutely brilliant. It's all on Teams and SharePoint and everything. It's all this technical stuff that you got on these computers nowadays that I'm too old to sort of like get to grips with. But it's absolutely transformed our business.
Yeah,
and that's what we're looking for in people.
Okay, and just to sort of move on from that, was there any other things that you think are going to stop you from reaching that 2 million goal, other than the staffing? As a general rule, cash flow is good, or is it?
Cash flow's okay.
You get peaks and troughs.
Peaks and troughs. Cash flow's okay. Can be a little bit tight, but essentially we are trying. Trying to keep on top of it. Since COVID, we take deposits on all the jobs that come in, which helps with the cash flow, and then keep on top of the debts, which is important. But cash flow is tight, and growing any business, cash flow. So I might have to.
I think that's quite important. That that deposit thing. It's funny because I remember when you started doing that, and I thought, well, it's an indication. But I'd hazard a guess when you've decided to do that. It is a scary moment when you think, oh, we're actually not going to win so much business because you're asking for some money up front. What does that send at the end of the? To the end user, if you like. But you've carried that on now, though, haven't you?
It's a standard thing.
Nearly 5 years. So.
Yeah, it's a standard thing. We started it because of COVID. When we went into COVID, we had £90,000 owing to us.
And no one paid.
No one paid us for 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow. And at the moment, we've got money in the bank because people have paid the deposits.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and we trade through that. That's how we trade.
I think that's like a really good way of dealing with peaks and troughs. There are several ways, but one is creating that kind of like depositing scheme. As long as you don't spend the money and then not deliver, but you've got that in the bank to fall back on. You've also then not having to fund all the products that you're buying all the time.
That's the idea.
Because their payment terms might be slightly better than what you're offering the customer, but there's often not a lot in it.
Or slightly worse.
Yeah, 45 days and you're offering 30, so you've only got
slightly worse, you're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. But there'll be a lot of people out there that will watch this bit of the video and they'll think, but I'm scared to do that because it's not something that I've done before, and I'm worried that you'll lose customers. But I think that if you explain it to them in the right way, they'll respect why you're doing that.
Yes, I've never taken deposits before.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things where you needs must at the time.
Yeah.
But now it is just our standard terms and conditions. We take a 50% deposit with the order, sir, or madam, and then the balance payable either on 30 days or on completion, depending on what your contract is. And the only exception to the rule is when we're working for people like the NHS, who we can't take a deposit of, so we take purchase orders.
Yeah.
And it works. Yeah. And because of that, we manage the cash okay. It's still scary sometimes because you've got the VAT, the wages and everything, and then you look at how much you've got in the bank and you think, well, that doesn't add up to that. So how am I going to pay that? And then suddenly tomorrow you get a nice deposit in and that pays that. And that's it's how DFS work.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast today, and it's been a really, really good listen so far. But if you want to get on this podcast and come on the show, it's totally and utterly 100% free. All you have to do is come into the podcast studio, sit down, we film it for YouTube, and then we also make an audio file for Spotify, Apple, all those streaming services. What you need to do is head over to our website, www.matthewcox, that's Matthew with 2 T's, .biz. So it's matthewcox.biz. There's a preloaded form on there. Fill that in, apply to be on the podcast. We'll get back to you within a few days, get you booked in, we'll get you on here, and then we'll sort out your goals and your achievements. Back to the podcast. So in terms of other sort of peaks and troughs, I know obviously this deposit scheme, do you have any like recurring contracts or anything? Like, I don't know how it works, but I'm thinking like cleaning the signs or like maintaining them or something.
I wish we did.
Because I think that's a good way. Recurring income is like having to not always fight for it and start again, isn't it?
Yeah, the recurring income, that's why I started the clothing side.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the problem with signage is it's not property. As in, it's not, you're going to give me money every single month.
Yeah.
And having the recurring income is the one thing that the signage business has always struggled with. So at the start of every month, we start our turnover is zero, and we have to go out and find it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, after 30 years, we've got over 1,000 recurring customers, but they only buy what they need.
Yeah.
They're not going to buy something just for the sake of it. So we've all got telephones on our desk. We've got telephones in our pockets. And every single month, the telephone company gets anything from 10 quid to 100 quid off us. And that's guaranteed income for them all the time we need a telephone. Now, with the signage side of stuff, you buy a van. So if you're a small business, you buy a van. Now, you might come to me and you get it sign written and I charge you 500 quid and it's great. Or I might be able to get 750 pound out of you and it's great. Or you get a full wrap and it's $3,000 and it's fantastic. But you might not need another van wrap for another 3 years or 5 years, depending on when your sort of lease runs out. If you're an ambitious company and you grow, you might need a van every 2 to 3 years because you're recurring them. Some of our clients are quite big. So we've got one client who's got 150 vans. Well, we're doing 2 vans a month for them, which is absolutely brilliant. That's as close as we get to recurring business.
What about, I'm thinking like the products that they sell you when you buy a new vehicle.
Yeah.
Could you not do something like that? So like, say if you're on a van and the side door gets damaged and then you see it all the time, like it's been beautifully sign written and then the insurance company have come along and whacked a door on it because that's what got damaged, and then the signage, the stickers are still missing.
Yes.
Or, I know they don't last forever, but there must be like some care routine, like obviously you can't jet wash it, but you could also, I'm just thinking of some sort of subscription, like if you said, here's say you've got like a bog standard transit van or something, but for £30 a month, what we'll do is we'll come out to you and we'll inspect it once a quarter and make sure any little bits that are peeling off, we'll sort them all out or whatever, any imperfections or something like that. Or if you have an insurance claim and they don't replace the door, the stickers on the door, we'll cover that in that 30 quid, for example. And then you've got that kind of, and I think, you'll be surprised because some owners will go, actually, that's quite valuable because I want it to stay looking pristine and nice and the rest of it and over a period of time. Almost like an insurance policy, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
As to
I
that.
I quite like the idea of that. We've thought about lots of different things. The biggest problem we've got is whilst we're growing the business and whilst I'm busy, whilst everyone's busy within the business, it's setting that sort of thing up, managing it.
Yeah.
I call it, we've got to find our fries.
You could use AI to set that up for you. You could use AI to set you up a contract, which is basically a recurring monthly cost for a maintenance package, no different to like a boiler service, you see those all the time, that sort of thing. And AI will just smash that out within probably like 10 seconds. And then you need to then read it and maybe editing.
The contract bit's easy, but the problem you've got is getting the salespeople to sell it.
Yes.
I call it find our fries. So McDonald's.
Another little.
Another little.
I feel like I've only got one or two.
Yeah, another little Norman anecdote. You've got these things. It's because I've read too many books. You see that? It's because I've read.
I just like if it was easy, anyone would do it.
If it was easy, anyone would do it.
I don't know who coined that first, but I'm going to take that as mine.
You're going to take that as mine. I think I said that right at the very beginning. I think you might have got that one off.
Oh, okay.
So the thing is, you go to a McDonald's. And now, if anyone's ever read Roy Croc's Grind It Out, they made more. Obviously, now it's a property company, essentially, because they own all their properties. And that's how McDonald's made their massive amount of money. But when they first started, they sold burgers. And they sold these little 99-cent beef burgers and 99p beef burgers over here. And then someone in the company had a bright idea of selling burgers with fries. But nobody was buying fries with their burgers.
Yeah.
So they got all the people on their counters to actually say, do you want fries with that?
Yeah.
So then people would go, oh, yeah, go on in. So then they started realising they just doubled their turnover by saying, do you want fries with that? And then when everyone was buying fries, they made it a meal.
Do you want a fry and a shake with that? Or
they made it a meal deal. Yeah. And then when everybody had a meal deal, that was brilliant. So then how do you make more money out of a meal deal?
Yeah.
Do you want to make it large?
Yeah.
So do you want to just die of a heart attack at the age of 65, or do you want to die of a heart attack at the age of 60? Do you want, do you want to make it large? And everybody, and McDonald's, by saying, do you want to make it large, suddenly realised they made so much more money out of that making it large than any other thing. So what we've always been looking for is, what's our fries?
Yeah.
We've got to find our fries. Now, we've tried different things over the years of trying to say, you've just had a van sign written, buy 10 trade boards off us. Or you've just had a van sign written, do you want us to put you on this sort of like maintenance package? Now, the gut feeling for people is that they go, no, but then it's managing it. But I quite like your idea of what you were saying there. So I might take that back.
Yeah, I think that if you can get a few of those, and especially I think, you've done a few of our vehicles. If you said to us, they're different, if you had a whole wrap, it's a different price to maybe the guy or lady that just has their telephone number written on the side or whatever. They're all different levels of packs, aren't they? You could have a bronze, silver, gold.
Insurance pack.
Yeah, people understand bronze, silver, gold. We use that a lot here. And that would give you your kind of some recurring income every single month, really. Yeah. And often in businesses, those sort of costs, they get a little bit lost in the turnover and the rest of it. It's only when someone goes in and microanalyze and go, are we ever actually using that? Or can we use that? Can we can we get them out here? Because presumably that you don't need the physical location for you to do an inspection on the vehicle.
No, we can go out and inspect it. We can, and I remember after about 3 years, you told me that the C on your bonnet has started to lift.
Yeah.
And I passed it this morning and it's done. I was like, did we do it?
You did it in the car park outside one of the networking events.
That's all right. Yeah, we did do it. That was me. That was me. I did that.
So you do work on the tools.
So we do work on the tools. Yeah, they're probably not straight. And so that gets done.
Yeah.
But that could be part of it. I'm just wondering. Maybe I'm thinking like I would think if somebody said, "Do you want to take out our repair insurance?" And you go, "What does that mean?" Well, it's £10 a month. For this, £20 a month for this, or £30 a month if you get it damaged in a accident,
or some ERC peels it off,
or it starts to lift, or anything happen. We'll come along and we'll give it that maintenance.
Yeah,
I just think for £300 a year, it sounds quite a lot of money to me. But you only need 100 of them.
Exactly. We have to work it out. And you go, right, you've just spent £1,000 on your vehicle, and the chances of you leaving it in the middle of the high street, Mr. Estate Agent, and some are coming along and peeling off the 7 on the mobile number on the back, for the sake of £10 a month, we'll come out and deal with that for you if that happens. And they might go, £1,000, £10 a month, it's only £100, it's 10% of the value of the sticker. And the stickers are not, you say in the average lifespan of them before they start looking a little bit tatty is 5-6 years or whatever it might be. I think you'll find most people, for a small fee, if you make it £30-40, I think then people will get turned off by that because they just think that's going to add up, and how much of that before I've actually replaced the sign. So your £10 a month's £100 over 10 years, it's £1,000, which is the cost of the sign in itself. Yeah. But they're likely to make 1 or 2 claims probably, aren't they?
Yeah. But then it doesn't matter. We can do that. But that's quite a good idea. And we could do that. Obviously, the maintenance side of the signs, I've dabbled at maintenance before. But to say to somebody who has their signs done, if it's an illuminated sign, any illuminated sign that we do, we offer a maintenance, which is £25 a month. That means we'll come out, wash it once every 6 months, make sure it's all right, do a proper tug test for health and safety. Yeah. And that just costs £25 a month.
Yeah.
But the trick is, would people do it if it's not illuminated? Would they still? So for
it's
instance,
about how you sell it to people, I think. I don't think, you need to worry about whether it's illuminated or whatever, all those kind of signs. It's about how you sell it to people. Like if you've got a non-illuminated sign, you go, look, you've just spent £3,000 on your shop frontage. Who's going to get up there and clean it? Because you aren't going to get your staff up there. There's health and safety implications and the rest of it. Window cleaners don't know what they're doing. They use a brittle brush and they'll scratch it all and the rest of it. So it's how you sell it to people, isn't it? And that comes back to your staffing and your selling ability.
So do you think £25 a month is something that people would
I think you have a kind of fixed price for square footage of sign front, because there's like a small shop and a massive shop, isn't there? Yeah. So you've got to have some kind of perimeter to it. But obviously there's a cost benefit. If you're a large sign, it's costs the same to send someone to site, doesn't it, to do it? But then you've got a job for someone. They're tootling around Sussex, going round, and on a first Friday of the month, it's sign cleaning day, and they do 10 in a day or something. Yeah. Because they're rocking up and just giving it a good wipe over and a clean.
Well, a good wash. That's the thing. Because especially where we are, people are always phoning us up saying, I'm a sign that's knackered. We go down, it's full of salt.
But I think the thing for me is it's about installing in your staff. Like I reckon you could sell that.
Yeah, all day long.
But can anyone else sell it in your business? That's the thing, isn't it? So I suppose to kind of summarize, like for me, for my advice, or the medicine, if you like, I would say just a couple of things. So like look for those reoccurring monthly things. So you're not starting always at zero. Yeah. Try and get those kind of insurance type based products in line so that you've got something coming in all the time. You're not always starting from zero and fighting from square one. And I know you know that, but I think hopefully that's a good idea. But there'll be other things as well that you can do in there. And then with the staffing, I thought of something. It's something we're going to do actually, but and it might work really well for yourself in attracting maybe that kind of younger talent, maybe not the management side, although you could touch on that as well, is we've changed, or we will be, Julia's doing it for us, our like careers page on our website with the Charles Cox one. So no longer do you go on and you go, hi, if you want to join Charles Cox, like we've got jobs in accountancy, this is the sort of thing you can expect if you want your CV or put over to us. What we're actually doing is we're turning the whole thing on its face, and we're doing join the waiting list. So if you want to come to work at Charles Cox, this is what you're going to expect. We're going to do a little video. It's only going to be about 30 seconds to a minute long about all the funky things that we do here. So we're not just a boring conservative style block management property company. We do podcasts, we go out networking, we have a beer at 5 o'clock on a Friday, all that kind of stuff.
Stole that off, mate.
I did steal that off of you, but there's nothing wrong with that.
I take it as a compliment.
So all those things that we do here that are cool, that give us a USP from a staffing point of view, not just from a customer point of view. So then people will then be like, oh, I'd actually like to go and work there. It sounds like a really cool place. It's growing all the time. They're opening these offices. They've got these podcast things. There's lots of opportunities for me to do that. So, and then we'll say, if you want to come and work here, join our waiting list. And, we'll have at any one time, maybe 20, 30 CVs on a waiting list. But the real good thing with that is that those people have actively sought you out and they've wanted to join your waiting list. And rather than just a whole bunch of CVs that are just sat on the side, and like you say,
really
one in 40 is good. Yeah. Here, all these people have actively watched your video and went, I want to work there. I wasn't even looking for a job. Yeah. But if I ever am, I want to join that waiting list, and it creates that scarcity, doesn't it? Like, I want to be on that. Where do I sit on the list? Am I going to? Of course, you're going to interview them all, but create some kind of like nuss about your business, really. I think. So,
I think that's a really good idea.
Because you've got a cool business, like you can make a really cool video of fitting signage, the office. You go to events and networking and stuff.
I'll tell you what,
to be short and snappy.
Yeah, I'll tell you a question I would like to ask you, and it'd be quite interesting to maybe you should be off air. I don't know, instead of on air.
Let's go for it. We can edit it.
Yeah, maybe
as long as it's not politics.
Yeah, no, it's not politics. It's not politics. Although we can talk politics one day, we do another podcast. Okay, that'd be quite good. Although you shouldn't talk politics in a podcast.
No,
which is quite interesting because otherwise you get loads of haters.
Yes, haters or lovers.
Haters or lovers. Yeah. Wages.
Yeah.
So I've already explained to you that I'm paying oodles amount more for my team than I was before, which is great. They all deserve it, which is absolutely brilliant. The only problem is they all deserve it, but my customers aren't paying any more money, therefore I can't afford it. So at what point do I go, I can't afford them anymore? Because the industry is really tight. There's not many decent vehicle wrappers out there. There's not many decent sign fitters out there. So I don't know, you might have a sign fitter come and say, I can work for you, but I want 40 grand a year.
Yeah.
Well, I can't pay 40 grand a year unless I put all my prices up crazily. And then I'm not going to get any money because all the one-man bands are out there working out their garage doing it for half the price that I'm doing it for. But you tell me, blimey, Norman, that car you did, somebody told me you could do it for 600 quid and you charge me 900 quid. Yeah. You think I'm ripping you off, but I'm not.
I suppose it's the kind of market that you're going to go after because you will never compete with the guy doing it out of his garage. No. We've got the same problem. There'll be one or two man bands doing lettings, building surveying, all that kind of stuff. I can't compete with them because they don't have any overheads or whatever. So you're not in that space and you can't compete with it at all. You're in the kind of proper established business. You'll come and collect the vehicle. You'll bring it back. We'll do repairs on site. You've got all the system. It's not some guy's garage around the back, who then goes on holiday for 2 weeks and your car's stuck in there. Again, there are selling points, aren't they, to those things? Like we say, there's often we go, oh, I found a quote and they do it for about half of what we're doing it for. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. But what happens when Fred goes on holiday? And he's on holiday for 3 weeks, or he's out at a meeting, who's going to answer the phone, to deal with your lettings or whatever it might be. So that is about that sales force. Yeah. And it really depends on where you're going to aim your business in the market. Are you like the Mercedes-Benz or are you a Volkswagen, as to what kind of price you can get away with and what reputation? I'm guessing you're kind of sitting in that kind of Audi, like you're more premium than the guy in the garage, but probably more premium than some of your competitors.
When people say to me, if it was a car, where would you be? I always say Audi, BMW.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny that because it's regarded as like silver. No one ever says Mercedes-Benz because they've got like an establishment thing, haven't they, or whatever. Yeah. But no one ever goes Rolls-Royce either, do they? Well, or sometimes they say Rolls-Royce.
The trouble with Rolls-Royce is that Rolls-Royce are great, but you don't sell many.
No.
When you do sell them, they're really expensive.
Yeah.
Whereas Audi, BMW, you've got, it's mass market.
Yeah.
But it's quality mass market.
Yeah. So you're aiming at that Audi price, and people will expect to pay more for an Audi than they would do for a Volkswagen, even though they know in their heart it's still part of the same group. In fact, Skoda's
Audis, aren't they now?
Yeah, well, the Fabia is basically an Audi A3, I think. Yeah. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but they're similar sized cars, but their price bracket is completely different. Although the quality, it does dip. Like if you go and look at a Skoda, it's not, they don't get that squishy, nice feeling on the doors and around the steering wheel and stuff. And those are the things that are your sales point. So when you say to your customers and that, when I presume you ask for feedback if you don't get a quote or whatever, and they'll say, oh, we went to 3 people and you weren't the cheapest. And then you feed that back into your team and go, we're constantly told we're not the cheapest and we don't want to go into that market. But what we need to do when we're sending the quote, we need to justify why it might be more expensive than the other quotes from day one, so that when they're reading the quotes, they're not just looking at the bottom line figure. No. They're like, actually, they've said all of this is included, whereas the other ones are just went like vehicle wrap and here's the quote, like nothing else. Like you've expanded upon what your offering is rather than just doing that. And that will allow you to justify any price increases because wages are hard. Ultimately we had the same thing, like everybody's wages went up and I was like, I can't afford to pay that. It doesn't work on the model. So we had to go back to some customers and say, look, the choice is either we don't manage you anymore or we put the price up, because if I don't manage you, I then don't need the staff or you pay more and I can have the staff. So those are the choices basically. And a lot of them were like, well, we'll look around. Well, they looked around and they gave presto, that was what the market was doing. So therefore, everybody else was doing the same thing. You'll always find somebody that's not doing the same thing. But if the market's going, wages are like this and therefore you need to bring your prices up, that will be across the whole market, whether you're in the Skoda or the Audi price bracket. And I just constantly monitor that feedback and then try to make sure. It's like ours. A lot of people said, or it's quite a lot of money. We do it for like block management, for instance, block of 6. We do it for free at the moment. How much is your fees? And we'd say, a minimum fee is 1,500 quid, but that starts at a block of 4. So yours is £2,000, for instance. And they go, well, that's quite a lot of money. Now what we do is we go, it's £2,000, or per person, it's only £22 a month. So that they look at that and they go, I forgot it's divided by 6. I thought it was £2,000 each. When it isn't, it's for the whole block. And then it's only my share of that. And if you break it down monthly, and then we even go one step further now and we compare it to how much Netflix costs and all that kind of stuff. So that we can then say to them, look, it's less than Netflix, less than your Amazon Prime subscription.
That's your James Sinclair's.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than a pair of Nikes.
Yes. Well, basically, I mean, I know he's a bit flamboyant about all of that, but it is really, isn't it? Making a comparison that people can then look at that. And there's nothing wrong with, I mean, that idea, I wouldn't say that came from that, but that's definitely fueled it and inspired it, because we used to just say, is this per month? And now it says like, if people are struggling, it's like, you realize it's cheaper than Netflix, or whatever it might be. And I think that really helps. But that's born of listening to the feedback that we got, where people went, it's quite a lot of money, isn't it? People were getting confused. That they thought it was £2,000 each or whatever.
Yes.
And then also even though we do lettings as well, we'd also, which some would say was shooting us in the foot, but with the block management, we compare it to how much people would pay on a lettings fee. So you might pay 8% of £1,000. That's 80 quid a month to have your flat managed. If you have £32 for the whole block. Obviously, we don't manage your flat, but then you can see how much less it is than what you're paying your letting agent. So then they'll be like, well, actually, that's quite a lot. To take all the hassle away, I'm already paying 80 quid for the letting agent or whatever it might be.
So when you do lettings and stuff like that, it's quite interesting. So if you're doing blocks, do you organise the paint on the outside? Do you organise everything?
Yeah, we try to do everything, and a bit in the kind of James Sinclair school of thought, really. We try to do everything and do as much in-house and have vertical integration and horizontal integration as we can. Like, we have our own two-guy maintenance team that will deal with like plumbing leaks and little bits and bobs. We can't do like construction work.
And are you cheaper than if we got them?
Yeah. We basically charge a fixed fee for the first hour, and then it's reduced down. That's and you won't get, we were finding you couldn't get people out for less than 100 quid, like to do anything. So our fee is £50 for the first hour, then £35 after that.
Oh, that's good.
Which is dirt cheap in normal circumstances, but we can only offer that because of the volume of work that we're giving those people.
Yeah. So they employ your guys.
Employ them directly. And they go out and do all those handyman jobs. So I think like looking for those recurring sources of revenue every month, and then definitely have a look at that waiting list style thing. Make your firm really like a cool place to come and work.
That's a takeaway. That's a good takeaway.
So I think that's kind of covered your points, and I think if you do that successfully, you can get to that £2 million valuation, and then you can.
You've got to keep opening more branches.
To keep you in business. Okay. So, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss? Obviously, you had that one question about that. So.
No, I think it's been good. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. And I'm buoyed up. I've not done anything like this before. I'm quite buoyed up, and I'm quite looking forward to getting the teeth into things. Like I say, the big challenge I've got at the moment, looking for a sign fitter. So if you happen to bump into one, pass him my way.
Okay. And so how do people get hold of you, Norman?
Sussex Sign Company, sussexsigns.com, or literally, I won't put the phone number out on this, but if you go to sussexsigns.com and you'll see us, and just give us a ring off the phone number, and then one of my team will be very happy to look after you.
Brilliant. So if anybody's in that space, they're after signage, stickers, laminated things, COVID screens, if anyone even needs
COVID
them.
Screens, no, not COVID screens. I've had my fill of COVID screens. If anybody wants any shop fascias, vehicle sign writing, premises, digital prints on walls inside, anything that's sort of like really funky, and obviously clothing, which is something we didn't touch on, but we do clothing as well.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
It'd be good to see in maybe a year or two's time, see where you're at, really.
I'll come back and tell you if I've managed to get on target.
Yeah.
Because like everything, it's going to be ups and downs and ups and downs.
We don't know.
I wish I could go from 1.2 to 1.4 to 1.4 to 1.2. But I know it'll be 1.2 to 1.25 to 1.46.
Yeah, it won't be as linear as you think it will.
Unfortunately, I've been doing it far too long to know that's not going to happen.
Brilliant. Well, it's been lovely having you on, and wish you all the best, and hopefully we'll catch up in a year or so's time. So, ladies and gents, I hope that was a really, really insightful journey. You made it through to the end now, but I think that, it's a common trait, really, that peaks and troughs are something that a lot of businesses, if they can iron them out, then that gives them a real key to success. And those core values, making sure the right members of staff are brought in, key to retaining them and growing that business. If you're ever going to get to the point where you're working on the business, not in it, as I say many, many, many times again, it's really going to be that management team. Norman's got these peaks and troughs. He's gone through all of these various, challenges through his business career, and he is where he is right now. And if he can get the business to just be in a nice, stable place with perhaps a bit more income, he can then start to truly work on the business and not in it. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to go over to our website, matthewcox.biz. That's Matthew with 2 T's. If you want to be on the podcast, apply. It's totally free. You just come and sit in here, have a chat about your business. I'm not going to grill you mega hard. I'm just probably going to put some few key questions to you, like your mate would, down the pub. We'll have a chat and that's it. You can use all the material for your own promotionals, all the rest of it. I just do it because I just love talking to business owners. So if that's a bit of you, go over to our website, fill the form in, get on the podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.